that's okay.
Yeah, sure, we can go ahead. We're just recording this directly on YouTube on a private link. All right, so we can get started. Apurva, do you want to start with Navkar Mantra? Three
Uh,
Navkars?
I am just getting home. I'm so sorry.
Oh, okay, okay. That's fine. Who else wants to say it? Maybe Akshat?
Yeah, sure. Namo Orientanum, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Aryanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Savasaunam, Eso Pancha Namo Karo, Savapava Panasano, Manglanancha Savisim, Padam Havi Mangalam. Namo Orientanum, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Aryanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Savasaunam, Eso Pancha Namo Karo, Savapava Panasano, Manglanancha Savisim, Padam Havi Mangalam. Namo Orientanum, Namo Siddhanam, Namo Aryanam, Namo Vajjayanam, Namo Loe Savasaunam, Eso Panchanamokkaro, Saupava Panasano, Manglanacha Savesim, Padavam Have Mangalam, Namo Orientanam.
Jai Chandra. All right. So the last time we talked about the Bharavanusari Gun, and we had a nice discussion. And Anushka texted me a question. So, does anyone want to do like maybe a quick recap? We can share the slide so that it's easier to do the recap. Anyone wants to volunteer to just tell us, summarize what we did? We can start. Sorry, forgot to do natural.
जय तो विक्रम प्रमुख श्री गुरुदेव जय तो विक्रम प्रमुख जय तो श्री
Yeah, so if anyone wants to kind of give a quick summary of what we touched upon last time, what we discussed, any takeaway points? Next.
I can do a quick summary.
Sure.
Um, so from last class, I know I wasn't there, but just from the video, I can just discuss what I took from it. So we did a quick overview of the 35 basic qualities. And I think we kind of more in depth discussed marrying someone with like similar virtues and why that is important. Um, and then we also discussed, if we need to have like bhav and, um, discussing like if we need to have true intention behind all of our actions and, not just doing act like these 35 qualities just for doing them. We should actually have like intention and value behind them because then it's just kind of going through the motions. Also making sure like oh, I think also Rakesh Uncle said something about the lines of like in your free time, like a lot of people, instead of focusing on like dharam or expanding themselves or bettering themselves, they gossip or slander others or take like their precious time that they should be focusing on expanding their knowledge on hurting others. And that was like a really important point that I took away from last class. And then we also kind of moving on from that, discussed the two perspectives, which was the gateway, which is Vaivyar Vaivnar. I don't know if I'm saying
Five.
yeah. And then
Nischay.
Nishay, yeah. And so that the gateway one is it's we say like quote unquote like practical faith. And that kind of covers three things, which is through Dev, through Guru, and through Dharam. And this is the point that I like really my question kind of stemmed from, which was basically how you get like it's like we talked about Vairagya. I don't think I'm saying these words as they should
Vairagya.
be.
That's okay.
Vairagya.
Vairagya.
But it's basically it's the first step to get vitrag, which is like detachment, and essentially we're letting go. It's the first. It's like when something happens to you, and you realize, okay, the universe and like the world isn't how it is, and everything isn't absolute, and how we see it, and nothing is like concrete. And that's kind of our first step, and that's kind of where my question stemmed from, which is we go through so much pain, suffering, and just we get this kind of realization like every day. Like there's always something that goes wrong, that we're like, wait, like this isn't how it should be. But then we go back into what we always do and we don't kind of take that step towards vitrag, which is actually doing the actions, which is what this bridge is kind of showing is actually taking those steps to get to moksha. And then kind of going on from there, we also talked about Guru, which is the bridge to Bhagwan,
Mm-hmm.
um, and how a lot of times we're afraid to talk to a guru because we think it's if we're not, getting that enlightenment or that moksha, like why are we talking to them or like wasting their
Mm-hmm.
time? But we should kind of get rid of that fear, and they provide, good knowledge and good discussion. So we should be talking to them. And that's kind of a basic overview of what we discussed in last.
Great. That was wonderful.
Yeah, that's good.
Awesome. So, yeah, I would encourage everybody to re-listen to the class because a lot of things, it happens to me too. We're in the class and we're, discussing things, and then later on, after a week, it's like just all washed away. So, even though Anushka couldn't attend the live class, she made it a point to listen to the recording. So that was great, and that was a really nice summary. Uh, nice job, Anushka. So, yeah, let's talk about your question, unless somebody else has anything else to add here or something that we missed, or something you thought about over the week and the weekend. Yeah, Jalpa.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that term that I learned from you guys last session, which is hitopadeshi, which I thought is so beautiful because like
Mm-hmm.
it just summarizes the essence of Bhagwan, right? Like Tirthankar Bhagwan or Sid Bhagwan, in
Mm-hmm.
the sense that they wish us so much well being in every aspect of our lives. So I thought that that term is so beautiful.
Yeah, yes, true. Yeah, otherwise, it would be kind of, it would be a very bland flavor of Bhagwan, right? Um, without this aspect.
Yes.
That's what connects us to Bhagwan. So true. Anyone else has anything else they thought about or want to add or have any other questions? No? Okay. So let's jump into Anushka's question. Anushka, do you want to just like read out your question again so that it's on, we're clear exactly what you asked, and then we can jump into the
Yeah,
answers.
I can do that. So essentially I asked, so we discussed Viragya in our class and how most of us get into this cycle of realizing that everything in the world is temporary. But then we forget about that experience or that pain that we felt and kind of feed into the materialistic or physical desires of the world. And I'm just curious as to like, I guess I understand to a basic where it's like, we feed into our senses and that's, that provides us that momentary like not gratitude, that momentary pleasure. But I guess like if you experience so much like pain and these repetitive mistakes, like I guess why are we not learning from them, or what's that block that's
Correct.
prevented so many, you're born as a Jain, but then
Mm-hmm.
what is stopping like all these, Jains from, becoming
Yeah,
omniscient or, getting moksha? I guess
that's a
that's
good question. So,
yeah.
you tell me, you tell us. But I
It's an excellent
Well,
question.
yeah, to like a basic, I understand, like we feed into our senses and
So,
we
Mm-hmm.
get kind of caught up in like the everyday. But I think like, even growing up, like I went to like temple every weekend and I obviously took your class, like Nyanti Rakesh uncle, and like I've grown up with like all these principles, right? And like I try very hard to like stick to them and stuff. But I think like I guess, and I try every day to remind myself of, what I should be doing and telling myself to be a better person every single day. But I guess like I just don't understand like why we have all this information. I know it's hard to like condense everything that Bhagwan has told us.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's just like I guess I don't understand why, because I think like, if people say, okay, I want to exercise, like they're able to like dedicate themselves at least for a little bit to that. But I guess
Right.
religion, it's like, why is it so much more daunting? Or I don't even know if daunting is the correct word, but I guess why do people fall out of that cycle? I
Yeah,
don't
I
even know
think
if
we
there's an
touched a
answer
little
to
bit
that.
of it last time. Yeah, and it's good. Some of the things that if you are able to inculcate in your daily life, that's really good because I know it's very hard uh, when you are kind of studying or when you are early in your professional career. The whole emphasis is on that. So that's good to know that you are at least reminding yourselves every day. Um, so the main thing comes to motivation, right? Like even the exercise thing that you mentioned, right? So if we talk about how the New Year resolution that hey, I'm going to lose 5 pounds of weight or 10 pounds of weight, and then we get gym membership, and then after then usually they give like 2 weeks of free trial because they know people will sign up for the New Year, and then after few days, few weeks, or maybe even a month, things just go back to because the motivation is not there. Right? So one thing would be that unless and until we we value the it's very rare these teachings of Bhagwan. I mean, even for people who are born in Jain families, not everybody would have access to it. So, so, so in that sense, we are really fortunate, and the fact that when we started, I don't know, I think today is what third or fourth session. So, fact that you guys are still showing up, that's a good thing. I thought maybe people will lose it soon. So, so we are very fortunate. Um, I had mentioned that before, and I kind of strongly believe that these are not like very often the connotation that we have with religion is that hey, uh, thou shall do it, and like there is a God, and uh, he is telling us that hey, you do it, otherwise you will be doomed. So obviously that's not uh, Jainism is not at all like that. And so the beauty of Jainism is that these are like uh, just as relevant, or even more relevant, I should say, principles as what we learn in like physics or chemistry. Like, so these are like really scientific principles. It's just that even like if I don't know if you guys have studied, but like if you look at the history of science, like even within science, there are like a lot of debates and back and forth, right? Like people won't agree with each other, and they will prove that hey, your discovery was incorrect, and so on. So, so it's not like even the things that we learn in science are like fully accepted initially, at least over a period of time. Then some of them get accepted and we learn. But the principles that Bhagwan is giving is very much can be subject to logic and should be subjected, and therefore we should be able to convince ourselves that yeah, this is the right thing. And to that extent, I had mentioned last time that uh, two things that really blocks us from doing that is two other things. So besides, so first is to get the importance. In order to get the importance and in order to understand how fortunate we are, right? Like we, unless and until we kind of spend some time, it's not gonna it's not gonna make an impact. And the thing that makes it hard for us is um, the people around us. So like our peers and even parents, relatives, friends, not very few of them uh, have this kind of perspective. So it's obviously very easy to go with the herd mentality, right? So nobody will question you. You can blend others very easily. and it's difficult to forge a path of your own. And then the second thing is that even for us, like our background, and I don't know if this will make sense to you guys or not, but um, in this lifetime, also we have not done anything. Like the things that we have done are typically the instincts that we were born with, which is built over a period of multiple lifetimes. So even our past is more or less biased or inclined to do these things. So therefore, we have to, like, not only we have to break through against the peers, so as to speak, and but also we have to go against our learning, which is like very deep rooted in us, because it's built over a period of multiple lifetimes. So the only way out is, again, with we are fortunate that we have we have a good mind, in the sense that we have a cushioning mind, right? So if we can cushion, and we can, and that's where it's really good that you asked that question.
So it's like how you must have learned about animal models, how animals learn, right? Or how anybody learns. So we have certain neurons that fire, and there's a pattern, and that same pattern would keep firing when a similar task is being done. So we are so used to, we've just been wired in that way, and we have wired ourselves in that way over lifetimes. So changing that is, it's like changing an entire, your mindset, your habits. It's like a bad habit. If you're trying to overcome a bad habit, uh, you have to, do something really drastic to be able to overcome that, because the same pathways of, and I think you were almost saying that the things that give us gratification, that's basically what it is. It's the instant gratification that we get where our mind just stops, right? So we get satisfied with doing a few things that we are just used to doing, and trying a more difficult, a so-called difficult path is not something that we are wired for. So, but we are not animals, right? We are not. We can rise above our body. We can rise above our mind, and that's what a human being is capable of. And that's we are basically not using our full potential. So to do that, yes, it's difficult. You are going to swim cross current against what everybody else is doing and what you have done in the past. So those are the things that are blocking us. True. And then there is also, like, we've just not understood dharma as a way to solve our problems.
Right.
We've understood it as just mechanically doing things, like saying a few sutras or doing a puja, and and that's also like an instant gratification. You feel good, you've check mark, that okay, I went to Derasar, I did this, and I'm done. And it doesn't really lead us to anything. We're not checking for results. We're not checking, okay, is this making me a better person? Or what did I gain out of this today? And even if it's the feel good, right, that also uh, needs to be reinforced, that okay, this activity makes me feel good, but I don't want to, this is a path, this is a stairway, and my destination is ultimate bliss, or becoming a better person. I don't want to be satisfied by just taking one step and just sitting down on that step and not climbing the whole uh, stairway and reaching where I'm supposed to reach. So we don't have that in everything else. We always, whatever time we are investing, whatever money we are investing in it, whatever we are doing, we are looking for results. And here, in this aspect of life, we just are not looking for any result. It's just, going through the motions and being happy with it.
that was extremely helpful. I guess I had never thought about how Dharam is just taught that way. It's not considered like an aspect of like even unintentionally like and now that I'm like looking back, I'm like, yes, like growing up, it was always we have to go to temple on Sunday. It's like, it's like it's part of your routine, but
Hmm.
I guess you're not considering it like your lifestyle, which if you're considering something just something that you have to do routinely, you're not
Correct.
really going to think about it 24/7, one,
Yeah.
and then also you're not going to really practice the values you should be on a daily basis, and then you're just forgetting, you're just going through the motions like, and I guess we are in such a society now that everything is just kind of like that, that I guess I hadn't even thought about it like that because we're so used to doing everything, um I guess not without intention, but it's kind of like, okay, you have to do this, you have to go to work,
Hmm.
you have to
Hmm.
do this, and this. So I guess there was not, I guess going back to Vidyagia, like there's no like intention behind what we are doing. So that was extremely
Hmm.
helpful. Thank you.
And since you brought up Vairagya, we in this context, it's basically the starting point, right? If we don't have that feeling within us that everything else that we are doing is futile, it's not leading us anywhere. Uh, if we don't have that feeling, then obviously we'll keep doing it. So that pain point has to be there. And it does, we do have those pain points, we do have those, we see those situations, like we go through those tough situations in life, and then we forget them, and it's the same thing again. So like you mentioned in your question, Anushka, we don't seem to be learning from it. And so there is actually, we wanted to share something, the scriptures.
So one thing, yeah, you can share this. So we just to be clear, right? So we taught with the reason why we went to Vairagya is because we started with Vitrag state. So Vitrag is a synonym of Bhagwan. It's a synonym of Dev, Arihan, Jin, Prabhu, Parmeshwar, whatever name you want to use, the supreme being. And so that's the ultimate pinnacle, the culmination and the starting point, right? So if and I had challenged this before too, that hey, even though you guys on your own said that hey, Vitrag is a good quality, we want our Bhagwan to have, our God to have Vitrag, but I still I feel like it's very hard to accept Vitrag as to have positivity or to consider Vitrag as a good quality. So I would still challenge all of us to think on that. But keeping that aside for now, so if we can say, hey, Vitragta is directly related to bliss, and Vitragta leads to bliss, and I am aspiring for bliss. So therefore, how do I get to Vitragta? And in order to get to Vitragta, we start with Vairagya. So Vairagya is kind of the initial stage or the seed or the stairway that will take us towards Vitragya. And Vairagya is, so maybe the term is I don't know, a little bit hard to pronounce, and perhaps I guess we don't cover that in the basics, or should have, but anyway, there's the reflections. You guys, you might be familiar with that, contemplations, the 12 bhavnas, 12 contemplations. So those are mainly, the main purpose of those is to inculcate a sense of vairagya in us. So then the question is, what is vairagya? Does anybody want to quickly answer that? What is vairagya? So it's not just me talking, or Neha and I talking. It's not a too hard a question, I think. What is vairagya? You can explain in your own words, or you can too far.
Anyone wants to, in your own words, in like giving an example maybe where you felt like you could feel the futility of life.
Yeah.
Oh, I can go if no one else. Oh, Jilpa can go too if I feel like I've been talking a lot, but
That's okay.
Both of you. So start
I
with
guess
you first.
I guess I related it to like a water droplet. Like it's your first droplet like in your glass that you're filling up with like good virtues and or like it's kind of like your first I don't know like I just think of it as like a water droplet like filling your cup in positive things and this is like your first droplet to leading you to a path of like um you know like becoming a good Jane is
But
kind of coming to that.
what is Vairagya? Like in couple of words, in one word or few words or even
Oh,
sentences,
like the definition you're saying more of instead
Or
of
an
like
example.
describing.
Or an
Yeah.
example.
I guess it's like when you realize like how much attachment you're putting into the materialistic world, like kind of noticing how much attachment you have and getting rid of that. Or
Okay.
like not getting rid of that, but like seeing how much attachment you have and then acknowledging that.
Okay, so like 50% correct. You got one half of it, so that's good.
Maybe
Yeah.
Jalpa, you want to try the other half?
I don't know if I can make it complimentary to what she said, but I was gonna say, like distaste for sansar, like the mundane things that we have to do.
Distaste, you say?
Yeah, distaste.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice way to put it. Yeah. Right. Yeah, Aksha.
I like the way Anushka put it about attachment. I think if I were to put it in my own words, it would be like detachment of attachment, like not
Okay.
being like not being so focused on the good or the bad of a specific outcome, and just learning to live life without any expectations. I think that's the best way I would describe it.
Very nice. Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, that's not exactly Vairagya, but that's a really good one. I probably would say that's an outcome of cultivating the Vairagya mindset. So, yeah, I think Jalpa covered it somewhat nicely, and you guys got some portions of it, so that's good. So, I don't know if I gave this example last time, but when we are kind of down, like when things don't go per our expectations, and not just the daily things, because on a daily basis, a lot of things go up and down, right? So we definitely not all our expectations are met even on a daily basis, but something bigger than that, right? So like losing a friend or breaking of relationship or having a huge financial loss. So some major event, right? When that happens, we kind of it gives us a triggering point, right? So we kind of take a step back and wonder, like, hey, is this is this the nature? Like, for example, like if we were to breaking of relationship, right? So we would wonder that, hey, maybe like all men are not faithful, or all women are like that. Or if somebody dies, then we say, hey, okay, nobody was born, so like, hey, I spent my whatever 30, 40 years of my life with my companion spouse, and now he or she is no more there. So how am I going to live? So that kind of state, it is a little bit of things are not working, but at a more of a bigger emotional level than on a day-to-day basis, if that makes sense, right? And so therefore, the most common experiences that we have of Vairagya are usually those that are triggered by some tragic incident, and therefore it is the garbhit, means rooted or born out of. So the vairagya that we are most familiar with, if at all, would be the vairagya that is born out of sorrow. If I I don't know, somehow it just comes into my mind. Like when I was in school, I was a pretty, I used to get like good grades. And so in India at that time, and probably even now, and there's a lot of competition. So like typically like the people who are in the top 5, top 10, you are expected to get into a good school, like in the undergrad school. So, so when I graduated from high school, like so the system was a little bit different, but not going into a lot of details. Basically, when I graduated and went to apply for like, hey, I thought, hey, this is the one of the best universities or colleges, and I will definitely get it there. And then I realized that, hey, my number is so behind. That was my first jolt, right? Because in school, I was like, hey, we were competing with like maybe 40, 50 students. And now here you are competing with all the students in Bombay.
Thousands.
So, and that's when I even realized that, oh my, I used to think that I'm pretty good, but I'm no longer. So that I still remember, like, I was kind of walking near the seashore of Bombay and like kind of thinking like, hey, is this what life is about kind of thing? So that's kind of like my first encounter, I would say, with Vairagya. Um, so hope this helps to understand what it is. I mean, I think most of you probably have a sense of it, but
Another word that is used for this Dukh Garbit Vairagya, you may have heard about it. It's called Samshan Vairagya. So in the olden times, people would go to the funeral, and there's a fire, right, that is lit, and we burn the body after the person has died. We don't bury. So people go there, and usually it's most of the men going there, and the women kind of watch on the sidelines because they're too soft-hearted to go all the way to the fire. So watching that and the conversations people have at that time are all about how fragile life is, how temporary relationships are, how how the person that was living had all these dreams and they couldn't fulfill their dreams. They didn't achieve what they wanted to achieve, or they died, and now the people that are surviving are going to miss them. All of those kind of conversations, right? And we're filled with and people used to be very close-knit at that time. So nowadays relationships are so individualistic, and people don't care as much about each other. But in the olden times, the whole village would be there, and they would be mourning for like several days. And in fact, there would be special ceremonies for mourning. So it was even more formalized. So in those times, going through all of that for several days, it would trigger this kind of feeling. But then, as you know, it fades away. And these days it fades away very fast. So we kind of, we don't want to deal with this. And the reason why this step is so difficult and to move on to the next step is because we just don't want to deal with any kind of sorrow. Because actually, that's our nature, right? Our nature is to seek happiness. The problem is that this state doesn't last, because we're trying to forget it, but it's going to keep coming back. Every different situation, every expectation that we have is, never going to be met 100%. Very few, if any. And it's dependent on so many other things. And we've talked about, all about the happiness, why our definition of happiness is so questionable. We've already talked about that. So this Dukh Garbit Vairagya doesn't last that long, but we've all experienced it. So that's the sort of the state we're talking about.
Yeah, we even have a saying, right? Like time is a healer. So like to pass through that
So like we
That-
hear about certain people, like they lose their wife, the wife died, and then the guy just goes and marries somebody else within a few months. So, we jump into like the next situation trying to think that, okay, this is going to solve my problem. So that's, the Dukh Ghar with Vairagya. Then the next one is a little bit more advanced or complicated than that, is where a person renounces the world or gives up, and lives like an ascetic. But it's triggered by a different kind of feeling. It's not triggered by uh, understanding of the true nature of reality. It's triggered by ego. And this happens sometimes. It's not like, extremely common, but it does happen. And the reason to mention it is because we've probably gone through these situations before, where we take on certain sort of good qualities just to look good and just to feel good for a very temporary time. And that's sometimes somebody might go all the way to taking diksha just to satisfy their ego and just for people to bow down to them and, them to think that they are great because of that. So they do give up. I mean, they live the lifestyle of an ascetic, they give up everything, but the most important thing that was supposed to be given up on in the very beginning, the ego, that stays intact. And so in our scriptures, and Bhagwan has told us that so many times in the past, all of us have gone all the way up to Diksha. We've taken Diksha, and yet we are still here in Sansar, still going through the same problems that we had before, because that Vairagya was not the true one, not the pure one. And it was just triggered by this false ego.
I mean, yeah, this might, I don't know, is it hard to relate? But I think of some, like sometimes like the whole family would take it, right? So that's just because my dad and my brother is renouncing the world, so therefore I would also renounce. And one key point there that Neha hit upon was, even so, like forget about renouncing them. That's like a
Extreme.
more of an. But even small things that we would do, like if I'm developing some positive qualities to shape my identity, right? So if my identity is formed that, hey, I am known among my friends to be generous, or I'm known among my friends to be compassionate, or I'm known among, and if that is what I'm caring about, like the emphasis is not on the positive quality for the sake of quality, but for the sake of sort of fame or this recognition or acceptance, all those worldly kind of intentions.
You might see this sometimes. I'm not, saying everybody is like that, but there are some people who might be very, very, they're activists in certain areas. Okay. So let's say, for example, they are activists for animal welfare. Now, when they're activists for animal welfare, you assume the person has a lot of compassion, right? But sometimes in that whole situation, when they are fighting against certain bad regulations and torture against certain animals, those kind of things, they are also being extremely violent alongside to other people, and giving hate speeches and things like that. So although the whole intention and the whole reason why they're doing it, or I'm not sorry reason, but the whole idea behind it was very good, that they are fighting for the rights of animals. This kind of behavior is kind of triggered by something different inside. So that could happen. I'm not saying, I mean, kudos to all the activists who are doing this absolutely wonderful work. But when we go out in the world, we kind of take on this identity that I am this. And then we try to hold on to that identity no matter what. So then the other values get compromised. And that's actually the trick that Mohniya Karma plays on us. This is where we are, where our delusion comes in, where our ego becomes more important. And we see that a lot in politicians, right? I mean, they promise all kinds of things. They probably start off with good intentions, but then as they go further and further and deeper into the political realm, many other things, kind of just take over. And because it didn't start out just by pure care or concern for others, but somewhere inside it was this ego pampering mechanism going on. Does that make sense? Does anyone have anything else to add here or any examples that they may have noticed?
I wanted to add to the first one, the triggered by tragedy one, where you talked about, going to Shamshan, like the burial cremation place.
Yeah.
There's actually a Digambar Muni who was 5 years old when he attended a funeral, and he saw, like, even the skull getting crushed, and that brought so much vairagya that, like, he took diksha at that young age. So that's like a real life story where he said, life can go like in an instant, and then the body is shed, and all you're left with is atma. Like, he must have had some punya from previous birth, but the thing is that event triggered the vairagya, the extreme form of vairagya. And it goes back to what you mentioned, that it can trigger something, like some event can be the catalyst. So that's a real life example, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, it's kind of, in a way, it's very easy sort of to understand, right? Like whenever we go to like when somebody uh, is departed and we go to like the cremation place or the funeral place, it's very easy, right, to say that, hey, okay, this is going to happen to me too. One day I'm also going to die. But unfortunately, that feeling does not last for too long, or it's not strong enough to say, hey, okay, my life is also, now I realize that, hey, my life is also very limited. So what are some of the key things that I should do, right? So the transformation does not happen, right? It's just that we go back to our sort of routine and slowly we just forget about that, especially if it's not somebody very close to us. And even if somebody very close to us, we develop adaptive strategies essentially to overcome that, right? So these are like, in a way, these are good. I mean, it's not like Dukkha with Vairagya or Moha with Vairagya in itself is bad, because majority of time that's how the Vairagya would start. So as a starting point, it's fine, but it should end in the Jnana Garvit Vairagya. That's the key thing. So it should transform into that. And Jnana Garvit, we have not talked about that as yet, but it might be obvious. So if this is like, we understand the nature of how things are, right? So therefore, it's basically like a perspective that we have. It can be triggered. So there again, there is some sort of trigger that makes us think about that, or like over a period of time, as we understand more and more of what Bhagwan has said and what's the nature of this world according to Bhagwan, the Jain worldview, then we develop this. But the key thing is that this is based on the reality. And it's something that's very kind of, the foundation is strong in that case, right? So it's something that's coming internally from us based on our understanding, right? So because it's coming from understanding, therefore it's more deep rooted than Dukkha Garvit or Moha Garvit, and therefore it's going to last longer. And actually, what we had mentioned last time, I think, is that this Jnana Garvit Vairagya can, in fact, even lead to Samyak Darshan. And Samyak darshan, when that happens, that basically changes the person completely. And the seeds of the transformation are so deep that that is something that uh, goes on with the person, even in their future lifetimes.
Actually, we can use this, example of the person that we already know who went through some of these steps. So, you all remember Rishi Bhai, Rishi Zaveri?
Yes.
Yeah. So Jalpa is in Michigan, and he was in Michigan too. Anushka, do you remember he had attended one of our classes?
Yes, I
He-
remember. Yeah.
You remember him?
Yes.
Akshat, you met him, right? When he came here last year before he took Diksha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he went through these steps, like the tragedy that kind of triggered this vairagya in him. It started out with Dukh with vairagya. So his parents separated, and it was a huge, obviously, I mean, you can understand it was a shock in, Indian households. Separation is not very common. Um, in fact, very few Indians separate. So the divorce rates in India are extremely low compared to,
Not necessarily. I mean, things are changing, but
they're changing now. But still, if you compare the US and India, the numbers are very different. So but regardless, I mean, whether it's common or not, it's a shock for a child, right? When you expect the parents to be together, you expect everything, to go normal. And here is something where, it triggers this kind of, shock. And so it triggered a shock in him, and it went to the extreme where he really, and there were many other things that happened in life around that same time for him. I think, he went through a tough time when he had a lot of classes and a lot of, you all know, you all have gone through or are going through those tough times where, you have to juggle your time. And, kudos to all of you to be attending this course, even though you're juggling so many different things. So he had all of those things going on, as well as this pressure, at home, and then the peer pressure and everything along with it. So it went to the extent where he contemplated committing suicide. And it was a serious, I mean, it wasn't just, hey, I should die kind of feeling, but he actually went to that, he was almost there. And he decided to call his mom at that time. And she suggested, I don't know if you watched the movie that we made on it, Awakening. If you haven't, do watch it. So he went through that whole process. Now, his background was that, he came from a very religious family. Both his parents were very religious, are very religious. So he had that dharmic background. So he had the understanding, the basic understanding and things like that. But he obviously, still nobody expects something like this to happen in life. And so it shook him to his core. And so definitely it was Dukh Garbit at that point. After that, there's several things that happened in life. His mom suggested, and his Pachala teacher, who he was very close to, suggested that he should go to India and stay with some Maharaj Sahib, calm down, all that kind of stuff. And he actually did that. He went there, but he argued a lot with the Maharaj Sahibs that, he was, he met there. But their presence calmed him down. And the exchanges he had and the kind of interactions he had, and more than interactions, it was just observing their life that really made him feel that this is something worth pursuing. Okay, so he went through that phase where he liked them, but he wasn't still sure where, that Diksha is the right path for him. He wasn't at that point. And he wasn't at that point for quite some time. So he went back and forth, he went and met his guru a couple of times. He would come back. He was a very, very extroverted person, very active in many, many different areas. Like he was, in YJ, and he was in so many different organizations, and extremely active in all of these places, and contributed a lot too. So he went through all of those phases, but alongside, he also developed a lot of knowledge over time. And he also went through this phase of whether, he was looking for a life partner, right? So he went through this phase of who could it be, that kind of stuff. And he was, obviously, if you're that popular and you're all over the place, you're going everywhere, there are so many people, you will make so many friends, and you will meet so many other potential spouses. So, but in all of that, he realized that, there is something that is missing in terms of relationships being permanent. What are the ultimate motives behind relationships, all of that. And finally, he settled on taking Diksha after quite some time. I mean, the whole, from the time he joined college all the way up to, his first job and several years after that into the job, all of that time he took before he jumped into Diksha. It wasn't something that he just, okay, this feels good, and everybody's telling me that this is the right thing to do, and this is, everybody would bow down to me, and I should take it because of that. All of that, that wasn't the reason. That he had really thought through the whole thing, and that's how Vairagya should develop. That's the better way to develop it, and that's how one wouldn't, be swayed in between. So I'm not saying, everybody should be taking Diksha here. That's, definitely the ideal way to go about reaching the path of moksha. But even if we are not there, each and everything that we do, whatever dharma that we do, we want to make sure that we develop the knowledge behind it. Why are we doing it? And also check the reality around it, and check for ourselves whether we are actually achieving something out of it. So, if we are investing so much time into it, if we are putting, whatever effort into it, we should be getting something out of it, right? That's what we do in a job. I mean, if you don't get your paycheck and you keep working, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Is that making sense?
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying in terms of checking ourselves and, giving ourselves like small milestones, like, hey, am I doing the right thing, or
Right.
am I progressing, or whatever?
Right.
And one more thing which may not have come out in this. So sometimes when we describe Vairagya, because like the ultimate meaning of Vairagya can be also taken as renunciation. So basically Diksha. So what I wanted to emphasize was Vairagya is not necessarily the external transformation or the external outcome, but it's more the internal, the way we think. So that's the critical distinction I wanted to make, right? That it's even if we have not, like, even if we continue doing whatever we are doing right now, like pursuing a career or working towards having a family life or whatever, but if we have that mindset that the futility of worldly achievements, maybe that's the probably one way to describe Vairagya, right? That hey, no matter how much I achieve, so we started like when we don't achieve, right? When we lose something, so that's like the dukkha, that's the triggering point. But the jnana with Vairagya, the Vairagya based on knowledge, should lead us to this state, right? Where I know that hey, no matter how much I achieve, these achievements are all futile. The worldly achievements are all futile. They're not worth much.
And you can always, like, there will always be someone who would do better than that, right? So if we are in this rat race for money, there will always be somebody who's richer. Um, there will always be somebody who has something more than what we have, or it would not last long. All of those things that we talked about with happiness, the questions about our style of happiness, all of those things would apply. And if so, this vairagya, the one that lasts long, is the one that helps us understand this, and also it would lead to less frustrations, even though if we don't end up taking, diksha, uh, even living as a shravak or shravika, it will give us a lot of stability and peace of mind, because then we are not expecting things from the world. We're expecting things from ourselves, and that's our sphere of control. That's actually the only sphere of control we have. Right? We try to control the world. We try to control other people. We try to make them behave in a certain way. But you all know that only if that other person wants to behave in a certain way will they do it. You cannot force someone to do certain things, or you might be able to force them if you have power, but they don't really mean it. So all of these principles apply to our daily life too, even though we are not, all there ready to take diksha right now. Is that making sense, everyone?
I did have a quick question. I know we're like running out of time for
That's
class,
okay.
but I guess just for my own understanding, since this is my first time hearing these terms, so these aren't like steps, right? It's not like you get the garbit first and then it's like these are all like, I guess, egos or things that are preventing us. And then when we get viragya, that's like when we realize how these like egos are controlling us. So is that what it is? Or is it these are like steps, like, okay, first you get the garbit and then it moves on to gyan garbit? Because I know.
Not necessarily, not
Okay.
necessarily, but it could be looked at as steps, but it's not like you have to go through these steps. You could start with Gnanagarbhit Vairagya, and that's why we are here, right? So we are here to understand reality, or at least provide a framework to ourselves to understand our reality.
The key thing I would say is more like the questioning attitude, right? So if I like that saying goes, right, like why solve something if it's not broken, right? So if I'm completely at peace, quote unquote, completely at peace with whatever I'm doing in my day-to-day life, right? I'm happy with whatever is happening on my career. I'm happy with whatever is happening with my family. So then the question of something is broken here, and therefore something needs to be changed, will not arise. So it's very unlikely for vairagya to arise in that kind of a lifestyle, right? And if I have like small frustrations, I would do the typical things that most people do, right? Like whatever, hang out with friends or take a vacation, go to some other place, like change your a situation for a few days or a week or a couple of weeks, or go into alcohol, drugs, or whatever. So those are all the mechanisms that people would use. But the ultimate, the thing is, like, unless we fundamentally question that, hey, this is something is not right, and the way I'm doing it, I won't be able to solve this issue. And therefore, now I need to use the help of this whole framework that Bhagwan has given to us in order to solve that. Right? That's kind of the starting point of Vairagya. And then as we build more and more conviction, so ultimately the realization that we want to get to is that the worldly achievements, right? The questioning the importance of worldly achievements, and realizing that there is nothing like that. And so one more thing, like when worldly is basically like the translation of samsar, right? And so I also wanted to kind of make a point there that worldly not necessarily mean external world. So obviously there's the external world, like say, okay, how much money I have, how much, how large my house is, and how many luxury cars I have, and so on and so on. But there's also the more important part is the internal world. So within my mind, and that there are two words for that, and we're a little bit out of time, but hopefully you guys can stay for a couple more minutes. So we'll cover it more in more detail, but you probably have heard. So the two words from the Jain terminology is Vishay and Kashay. So Vishay is basically seeking sensory gratification. So that's kind of for most of us, the mode of happiness is that. And then Kashay is the emotions that are kind of connected with the Vishay part, right? Like so anger, ego, greed, deceit. So like we also thrive on that. So those that they together constitute the internal material world. And so far, all of our inclinations, all of our tendency, all of our innate learning is to seek happiness through means of Vishay and Kashay. And so putting a dent in that belief, that's the starting point of Vairagya.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep, and we can take more questions. I mean, this was a little bit more serious than I was expecting, but this is pretty fundamental. And like, so that's why I also mentioned before, like, in true sense, Dharam does not even start without Vairagya. Because you cannot, like, Dharam is basically saying, hey, the root cause of sorrow, or I should say the first layer, right? And we'll talk more about this next time. The first layer or first level of the root cause of sorrow is our seeking happiness in the external world, right? So because there is no happiness in the external world, and Vairagya is essentially reinforcing that. So if we don't align ourselves to that principle, no matter how much, even if we spend majority of our time in temple or doing religious activities, we would still not be really starting, even started, like be even in like the kindergarten of Dharma. So any other questions quickly? I don't know when you joined, Shaili, but do you have any questions? Okay, Jalka.
Yeah, I like the point that Nehabin made, and I just wanted to kind of mention it from my own words. The two concepts that you mentioned, one is change is from within, and also you only have control over your own sphere of control.
Yeah.
These are things that we know from, probably when we were kids. But moving from the intellectual to actually internalizing it is so hard and difficult. And I think it comes from living life and having experiences and then realizing, yeah, you can't change anyone else but yourself. And that's what Gandhiji said, right? Knowing from Jainism, he is known to make that statement that be the change you want to see in the world, you know and you realize that only after going through experiences yourself and kind of internalizing that over time. Like, it doesn't just happen, like, just because somebody tells you, it doesn't happen for you. Like, you really have to introspect, and then you realize that, yeah, change is going to start from me, not from anyone else. And you can only control your sphere of whatever you can control, not the outside environment. So yeah.
And the strength and the conviction in that comes from, in addition to what you mentioned, like adding the fundamental principle that Bhagwan gave us, that we are completely independent. Like each one of us, like each living being is completely independent of others. And therefore, there's no need to seek anything from anyone else. And that's the very hard part for us to kind of sorrow and understand. So therefore, like we typically don't go to that extreme. And therefore we are always like, we have like expectations. We are always trying to look good in the eyes of others and basically validate ourselves based on people's opinion of us, right? Like if everybody around me thinks I'm good, then I would think I'm good. If people around me keep on complaining or keep on showing my faults, then I would also say feel like somewhat sorrow and say, hey, I'm not a good failure, and then obviously depending upon the person, it can be taken in various at various levels, right? Some people might even go all the way to even contemplate suicide, that hey, I'm not a fit person in the society. Everybody is nobody is giving me any positive reinforcement or any positive feedback. But that's the whole outlook that we have, right, of seeking validation from others. That also needs to be that Bhagwan is asking us to question that.
And there are again, two aspects to it: the hard perspective and the Nishchay perspective. So maybe we can talk about that this time. But it was a nice discussion. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
anyone
Maybe you
has
can
any-
listen to the recording and catch up. Yeah.
Yeah, Shaili just messaged. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I said anything against Bhagwan Dharma, or if I said anything that hurt anyone, which I would say. Shivastu sarva jagatah parahita nirta bhavantu bhutagana dosha prayantu nasham sarvatra sukhi bhavatu lokah sarva mangal mangalyam sarva kalyana karanam pradhanam sarva dharmanam jainam chaiti shasham. Bhagwan Sadguru Dev. Jai Jinendra.
Changing.
Jai
Jai
Jinendra.
Jinendra.
Bring your questions like Anushka did. So do be thinking about what we've discussed and do bring your questions for the next session. Jai
I
Jinendra.
want to request
Yeah,
Rakesh Bhai to continue on that whole validation concept.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
All right. Yep.
All
Bye.
right.